seen it.
Welcome to Talk Law Radio with attorney Todd Marquardt of the Marquardt Law Firm at marquardtlawfirm.com.
Welcome to Talk Law Radio. I'm Todd Marquardt, on the radio, on podcasts, on Facebook, on YouTube, and on talklawradio.com, here with Kirk Harrison talking about estate planning, the definition of proper estate planning, and the first segment we talked about controlling our property while we're alive. The second segment we talked about using our property to take care of us and our loved ones if we become disabled. Now I want to talk about providing for a surviving spouse if you have one. This really hit home for me. I have a friend from church when I was just a young attorney who would ask me questions, and he's probably 50 years older than me. Mm-hmm. And so he told me this story about what happened when his dad died. When his dad died, his mom inherited everything.
Right.
And that was, in his mind, what the natural order of things should be. He didn't need the money. He had his own career, his own retirement. And so then his mom inherited everything. And then she got remarried. And he wasn't mad about that either because he wanted her to be happy.
Right.
And she was happy. Sense. And she was taken care of. But then when she died, her new husband, replacement husband, inherited everything from her. And that made him a little bit upset because that was the family money. Well, when her replacement husband died, he left everything to his kids. Now that really made him mad. Not because he needed the money, he just thought it was not fair.
Right.
And I told him, well, there's very easy things that could have been done to stop that situation from unfolding that way. But we call that an I love you will, where you just name your spouse to receive everything. Right. And they can do whatever they want with it. When I was a young attorney, I worked for another law firm, and we had a client. Her and her husband came in. They were like the Brady Bunch. He had kids from a prior marriage. She had kids from a prior marriage. And they were there because she was undergoing chemotherapy.
Okay.
Well, we got them all set up, and then she died. No. Her husband
Holy
died.
Mackerel.
Yeah, he had a heart attack. Nobody saw that coming. She survived many years after that. And they had put in their wills that if one of them, or after both of them died, then all of the Brady Bunch kids would share equally. Well, after the husband died, his kids stopped coming over for Christmas and stopped sending cards for birthday and stopped making calls. And so she came back and she said, I want to change my will. I want to leave it to my own children. And we reminded her that they had promised each other that they were going to divide everything equally, but it wasn't mandatory, wasn't written that way. And so I call that the magic eraser. She could change everything.
Wow.
And since he's gone, she can do what she wants. So that's one way of doing it.
Yeah. You know, my dad died. My mom was a lot younger. As I said, you folks wouldn't know this, but my birth mother died when I was like 6. So my father remarried. Well, my mother who raised us was a lot younger. So she had a lot of life left. So now I'm in a family of 7, okay? So there's a bunch. And there was no question, none of us thought, and we're very fortunate in that point, when he died, she got everything. And nobody would contest that, because my dad said, the minute he got us to 18 and out the door, I've done all I'm going to do.
Yeah.
And we knew that was his way. Well, we all went off. We all got degrees. We're all independently financially, I wouldn't say rich or anything, but comfortable. And when I see things like that, it's hard for me to understand because this is personal, okay? I see it. When I hear about that, when brothers and sisters and siblings and all just go after each other, and it's really something. It was very hard for me to understand that, but I'd seen it so many times, and I'm sure some of you out there are like that. So what you're saying is important. You got to remember, stuff happens, you're counting on one thing and it goes the other way,
And by having something in writing,
Right.
that helps to make sure that your wishes are followed.
A little more security. That's right. That's pretty cool.
We don't get to choose our family members.
No, we don't. Yeah, family members and neighbors.
Right. So last segment, you asked about what happens with remarriage. Well, I always ask, how would it make you feel if your spouse got remarried? Would you mind if some of your assets were used to make that person's life more comfortable? Well, if you ask me, I would say, I don't want that. I don't want that sleazeball using my money to go play golf or go to the movies or whatever. So if you're like me and you want to put some restrictions or stipulations on it, you can say, well, there's an imaginary division of the assets at the time of death. So the surviving spouse gets to keep her half because it's probably community property, and the deceased person can leave that half to a marital trust,
Right.
or sometimes called a Q-tip, a qualified terminable interest property trust. And then after you decide that you do want it to be in trust, then you can decide how restrictive you want it to be. You can decide, for example, that you want your spouse to receive at least all of the income.
Right.
So if it's in investments, then it could be earning interest or dividends or capital gains.
Right.
And then you can go a step further and say, well, if that's not enough, if she's used all of her income and her retirement and all of the income off of this trust, if she still needs something, then the trustee can distribute some of the principal, the saved up portion of it.
That's interesting. I've known both sides of the coin here as far as whether the new husband is a sleazeball or a really straight up guy or a woman, I think my wife won't remarry because I think I've tarnished her on marriage. After 37 years, I think she's probably had enough.
Well, there are statistics on that. What are the chances that a happily married woman would get remarried within 3 years of losing her husband? Well, it's about 10%.
Oh, really?
That she would get remarried, because most women will say, like
Yeah.
you think, I've had enough. But what are the chances that a happily married man would be remarried? Well, it's about
higher.
90%.
Well, yeah, because men are more, people don't realize that. Men don't have, and I hate to say this, but I'm going to say it anyhow. Men are the anger that comes from the divorce and stuff like that. It just seems like men don't handle emotions well, okay? And they don't like change, okay? I realize a lot of people get married and the woman says, oh, I'm going to change him and make him just like I want. And then the man gets married and he says, I want her to stay just the way she is. Guess what? It goes the other way, okay?
Right.
Right? She changes, you don't. And, that brings a lot of animosity after the break up and stuff like that. But on occasion, and I know one lady I know who did get remarried, and wow, what a great guy. I mean, it worked out very well for her. But it doesn't always work like that,
Well,
believe me.
What else I worry about is my daughter.
Oh, yeah. Kids, you're right.
If I leave her an inheritance and, God forbid, she dies, I don't want some jerk going to be spending her inheritance.
I think you feel strongly about this, don't y'all?
Yeah. Well, I hear all the bad
Oh, yeah, I bet.
bad news.
You get a
People
lot of
come into my
stories,
office with people
That's
have these
unfortunate.
problems. So let's go back to the surviving spouse and the trust that we've created for her. You have some options about who you want to be in charge.
Right.
she could be in charge of her own trust, which is what we call the fox guarding the chicken coop, because she could take as much money out of it as she wants to. Well, if you want to put more restrictions on it, then you just name somebody else to be trustee instead of her, so that she has to ask permission to get funds from the trust. And that could be one of the adult children, it could be a family friend, it could be a bank or a trust company. So that would make it more restrictive. And one reason a wife might want to do that is because since the husband needs to be taken care of by somebody, there might be some black widows coming out to try and take advantage of the guy. And if he has his inheritance in a trust, he can say, well, I hope you love me for love and not money, because I don't have that much access to my money. Just something to think about. That's a different way of handling the inheritance for a married person.
And you had said earlier that you can put some particulars in there. I mean, if he dies and the wife is not the trustee, someone else is, you also could put stipulations, as you were saying earlier, where she gets so much off the interest or some other way for a revenue stream to come her way. So that's pretty good, Right. But that she can't, kill the gilded goose, as it were, because of the fact that it's still producing those gold eggs.
And then whatever's left would go to the beneficiaries that you've already designated.
Okay.
We got to take another break. When we come back, we'll be talking about what happens after the surviving spouse, the second spouse, dies. Stay tuned.
This has been Talk Law Radio with attorney Todd Marquardt, brought to you by the Marquardt Law Firm. You can learn more at marquardtlawfirm.com. And be sure to listen to the full Talk Law Radio show Saturday mornings at 11 on 9:30 a.m. The Answer.
Each week, attorney Todd Marquardt talks about the law. His mission with the Talk Law Radio show and podcast is to help you discover your legal issue blind spots. In the beginning, God had one law. Don't eat from the fruit of that tree. Then came the 10 Commandments. Now we have federal, state, and municipal lawmakers that won't stop creating new laws. Laws that might impact you without you knowing it. Listen to the show and drop a line on Facebook or email host@talklawradio.com and let the host know what you think of the show, the topics you want to hear, and whether you want to be a guest.